Welcome everyone to our Veteran Readiness and Employment webinar. I'm going to turn this over to Eric Betancourt for Norco College, who's going to kick everything off there. Eric, if you're available, you want to join us and welcome everybody aboard.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Kirk, Ryan, Marlene, thank you for your support.
Thanks so
On
much.
behalf of Norco College, I want to thank you for attending today's presentation, Chapter 31 VRE. We have some people here with lots of great information to answer any questions you have in regards to Chapter 31 and CalVet and CalTAP. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Kirk.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Kirk Eller. I am a CalTAP training coordinator at California Department of Veteran Affairs. First and foremost, I would like to thank our partnership with Norco College and the Veteran Readiness Center there, the Resource Center in Norco, for allowing us to participate with them for this webinar on VRE. Also like to welcome aboard Ryan Morris, who is going to be our keynote speaker for the VRE program or Chapter 31. So he's going to be kicking things off first. I just wanted to welcome everybody on board and thank you for joining us for this webinar this afternoon. There's a lot of great information. Little background, I'm a Marine Corps veteran and a VRE alumni. I used Chapter 31 in 2014 to complete my degree so that I was enabled to in management, and now I'm here at the state of California. So it's a really, really good program. Has a lot of benefits. So please listen up if you're interested in learning more about this information. After we have Ryan speaking, we have our Inland Empire link, Marlene Steinbeck. She's there in person for this hybrid event and going to be speaking about her roles and responsibilities on what she does there regionally in the Inland Empire. And then following that, we're going to have the CalVet, a CalTAP overview, and just some benefits and resources on what we do here at CalTAP. All right, now I'd like to turn it over to Ryan Morris. He is the Vet Success Counselor for San Diego State University, focusing on veteran readiness and employment. And Ryan, if you're available, you go ahead and kick things off and we'll begin your presentation.
All right, great. Thanks, Kirk, for the introduction. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for attending. So I hope to provide you guys with some more information on the VRE program for those who are interested in potentially applying to it. We'll kind of review what the VRE program is about. We'll talk about the steps or process for using it. We'll talk about what it covers. For those that may already be using it, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding, okay, what is it that I should expect from it? What is my counselor supposed to do to assist me? So we'll kind of cover that in more detail. But just to give you a quick introduction, again, my name is Ryan Morris. I'm a VA voc rehab counselor through the San Diego Regional Office. I'm also a VSOC counselor at San Diego State. So VSOC stands for Vet Success on Campus. So I'm also a voc rehab counselor and a Vet Success on Campus counselor at SDSU. So finals are going on this week here on campus. They're finishing up. And we have graduation coming up this weekend. So we have some students running around, getting their cap and gown and stuff like that. So it's been busy, but that's all part of the excitement of fun. So I've been a voc rehab counselor for about 16 years, a little bit over 16 years, 10 of which have been on campus here at SDSU as the VSOC counselor, like I had mentioned. So I've seen a lot of changes throughout the years, and I think things are progressing in a manner which I'm hoping will be a little bit quicker for services, but it does take some time, and it is a process of using the VRE program. So we'll talk about that. Next slide, please. Okay, so the VRE program, you may have heard different things about it. Again, you may currently be using it, but really there's 4 points to it. Okay, so the intent of the VRE program is to assist service members that are in transition, that are separating out. We also want to assist veterans that are currently employed or working, maintain that job or find a new career field on campus. So we want to make sure that we're providing that specific specialized training or degree that you're wanting to pursue. and then also a home for those veterans who have a severe disability through independent living. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about the Chapter 31 program. VRNE, it used to be called Voc Rehab and Employment. It's now Veteran Readiness and Employment. Just a different name change, but same program. A question that I get asked quite frequently is, is the VRNE program the same as a GI Bill, or is it kind of an extension of the GI Bill? That's common, that I get asked that question a lot. And really the answer is no. It's not designed to be an extension of the GI Bill, even though it does provide additional entitlement time. The goal or purpose of the VRNE program is really for disabled veterans who have a service-connected disability, receive training that they need in a suitable career field, and then once they receive that specialized training, then to go on into employment services where we would assist them with finding employment. So in a nutshell, the VRNE program is employment focused as opposed to just education focused like the GI Bill, right? The GI Bill, you got 36 months to use primarily however you want, in terms of pursuing whatever degree you want to pursue, up to 36 months of entitlement time. But for us, under the VRNE program, like I had mentioned, we're very specialized. And so it's geared towards veterans who have a service-connected disability rating that are entitled, and then for them to receive that education training within that field that they're approved to pursue to get that degree or certifications, whatever it is, and then ultimately to find employment in the career field that they were trained to do. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's great. So what does the VRNE program cover? The GI Bill, like I had mentioned, it's 36 months. Voc Rehab is 48 months. So you're looking at 12 additional months. Now, keep in mind that you just can't use all 36 months of your post 9/11 GI Bill and then try to swing into Voc Rehab and use all 48 months under VRNE and then pursue your doctorate or master's degree. That's not really how it works. And so the VRNE program, it's up to 48 months. We want to make sure you complete your training within the time period that we put you into a plan for. So it's important that you finish it when you're supposed to finish it. If you need an extension, we can always look at that potentially. But again, we want to make sure you finish it in a timely fashion, and then you move into employment services where we would assist you finding employment. There is a delimiting date. It's 12 years from your date of separation, but if you separated after January 1st, 2013, then it's kind of like the forever GI Bill where it doesn't expire on you, meaning there's no delimiting date. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so for anyone who may be active duty, you are eligible for the VRNE program if you are in a medical board. So I just spoke to an active duty service member this morning. He's on a med board at Balboa Naval Hospital, and he's looking at using the VRNE program. So someone like that would be automatically eligible and entitled to the VRNE program. Otherwise, as a veteran, you need to have a disability rating of at least 10% or higher. So we'll kind of talk about that next. Next slide, please. So again, for veterans, they have to have a disability rating of at least 10% or higher. You don't need a strictly honorable discharge. So unlike the post 9/11 GI Bill, you have to have an honorable discharge. For our program, you could have other than dishonorable discharge. So we do have a little bit of flexibility with that, which I think is important because again, our program is designed for disabled veterans. We want to make sure we're not excluding certain people. And again, that 10% rating, if you only have a 10%, you have to be found entitled with something called a serious employment handicap, which means you have some significant impairments. But if you're 20% or higher with your disability rating, then you just have to be found entitled with something called an employment handicap. So for those individuals, an employment handicap means that you have some type of vocational impairment. So we'll talk about the process of applying and how they go about determining all that. But essentially, the vocational impairment means that either you're not currently suitably employed in an occupation, or you're lacking the necessary education or training to find suitable occupation or employment. So that's what the voc rehab counselor has to determine. So number one, am I eligible? Yes, I'm eligible if I have a disability of 10% or higher, in which case you can apply. But to be found entitled, that's a different process in of itself. That will be determined by that voc rehab counselor during your initial evaluation appointment. Unfortunately, because we have not enough voc rehab counselors, we have an influx of applicants that are applying into the program. We're looking at a potential 6 to 8 month from when you start to when you're actually scheduled for that first initial evaluation appointment with the voc rehab counselor. So it's a slower process. It's not like the GI Bill where it's okay, I just applied for it. I've got my COE, my certificate of eligibility. I'm good to go. I'm just going to turn that into the school. And then they'll go ahead and certify my classes. So it's a little bit different. So it's important to recognize, one, am I eligible? Yes, 10% or higher, I'm eligible. Number two, can I go ahead and apply for it? Yes, you can apply for it, but you have to be found entitled with either a serious employment handicap if you're at 10%, or 20% or higher with something called an employment handicap. So keep that in mind, that during the initial evaluation appointment, when you're scheduled for that within 6 to 8 months, that voc rehab counselor has to make an entitlement determination. It's not automatic, okay, unless you're on active duty under a medical board. Okay, next slide, please. So this will kind of, break down the process from start to finish, this evolution in a sense of when you apply. So an applicant, when you apply online, I'll send you guys the link. It's one of the last slides, but when you apply online, what they'll do is they'll review to make sure you're eligible with that 10% or higher rating. And then once they determine that, then they will schedule you out for the initial evaluation appointment. Again, during that initial evaluation appointment, that's phase 2, that they make the entitlement determination. Okay, either serious employment handicap or employment handicap. Once they find you entitled, okay, then they move on to phase 3, which is the evaluation and planning phase, right? So you're entitled, but that may not mean that I'm in agreement with either your employment objective, your career objective, or your training objective. So the two have to go side by side or coincide with each other. They have to be in alignment. So what you want to do for a career has to match what type of education or training that you need to obtain that. The other thing is that they do consider or look at your service-connected disabilities. So they want to make sure that's not being impacted, right? So if I'm, I want to go become a police officer or a firefighter, they're going to look at the fact that I'm rated at 60% for PTSD, and they want to make sure that that's not being aggravated. They're also looking at, the rest of my disabilities. Maybe I have a bad back, some bad knees I'm rated for. So the reason why they do that is because they want to make sure those disabilities aren't being impacted that may affect you from performing those job duties. And so that's kind of the process. Why it takes a little bit longer is we're trying to work with you guys on determining that. Because again, if there are any red flags, let's figure that out in the beginning phase, not at the end. Now, if you already know what you want to do, you're good. Hey, I've got this figured out. I've done my research. Then that's excellent. That's great, because then you should be able to justify or substantiate and provide that evidence if needed as proof to say, hey, these careers over here, these 3 to 5 job, career fields that I want to get into, they're all asking for this type of degree or education. Okay. And so the spirit is that at the end of that, you meet the job qualifications and that you get employed in that career field once you complete your education or training. So we have 5 different tracks, as you see there in the fourth step in this process. Most of you guys will be in the rehab to long-term employment track, which is requiring that education or degree. Okay. Once you complete that education or degree, then what we do is we move you into the employment service or job ready service track, which is one of the last tracks because we want to make sure you obtain suitable employment. So everything has to coincide, everything has to match, everything has to be in alignment. I know it sounds basic, it sounds very simple, but that's part of the struggle for some that don't know what they want to do, or if they want to do something that doesn't match with what the job's requiring or that voc rehab counselor is requesting. And that becomes a point of contention because we're wanting to make sure we're not missing something. Either your disabilities may affect it or you're lacking something with education or degree. We want to make sure that we've reviewed everything as you're progressing along, especially in the beginning phase. So once you've obtained that degree, then it's like, let's help you get a job in that career field. And once you obtain that job, then we consider your case rehabbed within 60 days of working successfully in that career field. So you get 2 months of employment allowance while you're in employment services. We just don't cut that cord. So if you're eligible for BH, the E5 with dependent pay, you'll continue to receive that for up to 2 months and then 18 months in employment services. So our employment coordinators, they will assist you with finding, job positions. They'll review your resume, providing interview skills, all these good things, tracking that you're applying for these jobs on your job log. Because again, at the end of the day, we want to make sure you're suitably employed and maintain that job, like I mentioned, for at least 60 days in that career. So that's kind of a snapshot of the process. Like I had mentioned, it does take a little bit of time because we are inundated. But if you already know what you want to do, this may speed up the process a little bit quicker. And if you're able to provide that information to your voc rehab counselor, that's really going to provide a quicker turnaround for hopefully them approving it. But again, if you're not quite sure or they're not in agreement with what you want to do, then you have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, well, what other information do I need to provide to this counselor, or what other research do I need to do to justify this? Because again, this is your future and your success. So your success is our success. So we're trying to work with you to identify that and put you on this track. So that, again, at the end of the day, you're suitably employed in that career field that we train you to do. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so now the other thing that I'm going to quickly talk about is something called Chapter 36 Counseling, Personalized Career Planning and Guidance, PCPG. It was also known as EDVO counseling. This is something where if you're kind of not sure what you want to do, or you're not sure if voc rehab is going to approve what you want to do, either for a career or training objective, or if you're like, hey, I might just want to stay with my post 9/11 GI Bill. I'm not sure if voc rehab's the right benefit for me to use at this point in time. Wherever you're at, in terms of trying to figure out what you want to do for a career or training, PCPG is an option where when you apply, we review all this information with you, so ahead of time. So instead of applying to voc rehab and being shot down, well, you can apply for PCPG counseling and then have a voc rehab counselor review this information with you ahead of time to make sure you have everything in alignment, so that they will review this information with you, such as your employment objective, training objective. They'll provide you with a career assessment test if needed to determine your interest and your abilities, to make sure that if you're not sure what career field you want to get into, that we've identified that. They'll do a lot of this legwork in the beginning with you, so that when you do apply to the voc rehab program, hopefully you have all this information set up so that you can review it with the voc rehab counselor, and then hopefully be able to progress through the VRNE program a lot faster. All right, next slide. So if you are interested in the PCBG counseling, to be eligible, you just want to make sure that you're either within 6 months of separating from active duty, or you're eligible for a VA education benefit. So if you're eligible for your post 9/11 GI Bill, which I'm assuming most of you are, or Montgomery GI Bill, any type of education program, then you would also be eligible for the PCBG counseling. Okay, so I highly encourage it, because I think for most that are thinking about going into the VRNE program that haven't done that research ahead of time, this would be step one, just to kind of get this information together and review with another voc rehab counselor before applying to the VRNE program. Next slide. Okay, so that's great. That's interesting. How do I apply for either one? Well, you can take a little photo of that. The website, it's very easy, just va.gov. Everything now is done electronically. And we're trying to stay off of paper. But when you get onto va.gov, you'll click on the education tab, And then when you get on the education tab, you want to look for the Veterans Readiness and Employment Chapter 31 section there. You'll click on that. You'll click on apply. The form is 28-1900. It will take you less than 5 minutes to apply online. You're going to confirm all that information, such as your address, your disability rating, all that good stuff. And then you're submitting the application. So depending on your address of where you reside, either the LA regional office will open you up or the San Diego regional office. Okay, so depending on what jurisdiction your residential address is located, one of the two offices will open you up. Again, if you're eligible with that 10% rating, then they'll go ahead and schedule you out for the initial evaluation appointment. Again, for San Diego, the San Diego regional office, it's taking between 6 to 8 months. One veteran that I spoke to this morning said, "Hey, I'm scheduled for my initial evaluation appointment on January 6th." Okay, so the quicker that you apply for it, the quicker you can get scheduled out, because unfortunately, it's taken a lot longer than previous years for veterans who apply for the program. So my recommendation to you guys is apply sooner rather than later, especially if you already know what you want to do and you're eligible. Go ahead and pull the trigger, apply online. Like I said, take a photo of the slide if you want to. But when you apply, we're going to contact you through something called EVA. Okay, so it's E/VA, Echo Victor Alpha. And so that's a form of communication that we use with you guys to say, hey, you're scheduled for this appointment, or hey, we need the following documents from you. Typically what we're going to do when we're scheduling out for the initial evaluation appointment is we're going to send you guys some forms to fill out ahead of time before your scheduled initial evaluation appointment. So there's some intake forms that we do provide to you that you can fill out on your own time, but make sure you complete everything that's being requested. So fill out the intake form, the rehab needs inventory, the R&I. It's 1902W, 1902 whiskey, and we will also provide you with an assessment test too. So knock it out. I've taken it. I've done it. It's not something that's going to preclude you from doing what you want to do, but it's a tool that we utilize to say, okay, let's review this together to make sure everything's in alignment. Your interest and your aptitudes, which are your abilities. We want to make sure it's all together, coinciding. That we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, measuring what we're supposed to measure. Okay, and so additional things that you can provide to your voc rehab counselor during your initial evaluation appointment that I recommend would be maybe your transcripts. Okay, so if you have any transcripts, provide those from your school. The other thing would be an education or degree plan, listing out the course that you need to take for your degree or major. That's important. The timeline, how long is it going to take from start to finish to complete this degree? If you're looking at transferring to another school, like to get your bachelor's degree, what schools are you looking at transferring to? I would also recommend that you provide 3 to 5 job postings showing that job requirement, because remember, we're basing everything off the job requirement. So if that job that we're agreeing to is requiring a bachelor's degree, then that's something we're working towards, right? So like here at SDSU, if you're pursuing a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, that's great. A lot of those jobs are requiring a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. That's one of the requirements to work as an electrical engineer. So pretty straightforward. So that's kind of what we're basing a lot of these decisions off of. So you want to provide that counselor that information. Okay, the more information you provide to the counselor, the better your chances are of them reviewing that and hopefully approving it, because you're able to justify it. Okay, so these are some things that I'm recommending that you do to provide to your counselor. The cost of the program, that's something that they'll want to review with you as well. And all this is done in the beginning so that once we put you into a rehab plan, then your focus will be on just completing your education or training and then moving on to employment services. So that's kind of a snapshot of the VRNE program. And next slide. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or anything that you're kind of not sure about, or you've heard things regarding the program and would like clarification about, I'm happy to answer those questions for you if you have any.
Hi, Ryan. We do have a few questions. First and foremost, thank you so much for the great information that you provided us on a couple of different areas that people can utilize in coupling with VRNE. The first question that came in is, I'm currently on chapter 31 and I have not heard from my VRNE counselor in 3 months. I had paid for materials out of pocket and submitted the forms for payment reimbursement, but haven't heard back. What is the process of changing counselors?
So unfortunately, that is a common issue that I hear a lot, especially here at SDSU is, yeah, I can't get hold of my counselor. And the big part of that is because they have such a large caseload that the response time, unfortunately, is taking longer. But 3 months not hearing back is unacceptable, right? We don't want you to have to wait over 3 months to get a response. I always recommend a couple things. One, keep emailing your counselor. So if you've sent several emails, great, keep emailing. The second thing is EVA. So you should have access to EVA. That's another form of communication that we utilize. EVA is like AI. It's our assistant. So it gathers information for us to review. And so that's put into a case note. So that's another way to try to get a hold of your counselor. Now, if you've done both of these and things are still dragging out and you're looking at trying to get reimbursed back for things that unfortunately you may have had to pay out of pocket for, then the next step is to try to get a hold of the regional office and to reach out to them and say, hey, I can't get a hold of my counselor. So I don't know if your case is through the LA regional office or San Diego regional office, but there's usually a point of contact for each department and each separate office that you should be able to reach out to them and say, hey, I can't get a hold of my counselor. And then they can try to get a hold of the counselor or the supervisor if needed, especially if you're like, I'm not happy with my counselor and I want to change counselors. That is a decision that's made by the supervisor. They have to have a very specific reason why you're requesting a change of counselor. So if you're through the San Diego regional office, I can assist you. I'll have my email contact, I think at the last slide, but you can reach out to me and I can provide you with that link. And then that way, hopefully you can get a little bit more assistance with reaching your counselor.
Thank you, Ryan. So the next question is, if I have applied online, how do I check where I am in the process? They haven't heard back anything since the submission.
Yeah, unfortunately, it could take a couple months from when you apply online to when you're notified. I get asked that a lot as well. You know, hey, I applied, over a month ago. I haven't heard anything. So keep checking your emails because again, EVA is how you're going to be notified. You can always reach out to me too for confirmation. I could always check in our system that the 1900 has been received. Hopefully your address or contact information hasn't changed. So we always go off of what is in the system, right? Like your phone number. So if you change your phone number or residential address, we send you something, there's a chance that maybe you didn't receive it. So we want to make sure that information is correct. You can also go on to your VA account to update any contact information if needed. But I always tell everyone, give it a couple months from when you apply to when you should be notified. It usually takes between 1 to 2 months on average for us to reach out to you to say, hey, applications received, and then you're scheduled for the initial evaluation appointment 5 months from now or whenever it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So there's two questions. I'm going to kind of put them together here for sake of time. So two individuals are asking about VRNE and the pursuit of a particular degree or certificate or associate's degree. So I guess to surmise both questions is there a threshold or max threshold in which you can pursue VRNE like with your education? So could you go all the way up to a PhD or could you only pursue, say, a certificate or an associate's?
So it depends. There's a couple different factors that we're looking at. Number one, like I mentioned, we're looking at the job requirement. What does the job require? And then number two, do you have enough entitlement time to complete that training? So remember, voc rehab's only up to 48 months. So if you're like only, pursuing an associate's degree and you're wanting a PhD, well, how long is that going to take you to complete that PhD? And then does that job require that doctorate degree? Like, hey, I want to be a professor at SCSU and conduct research and teach and do all this good stuff. Well, yes, then in that case, that position of being a college professor requires a doctorate degree, a PhD. So that folk rehab counselor would, number one, have to be in agreement that a PhD is required for you to work in that career field, and they're in agreement with that career field that you're wanting to get into, that employment objective. And then number two, do you have enough entitlement time to complete that training under our program? So if your counselor has to provide you an extension, they would have to look at doing that if you qualify for any extension. But that's a separate process in of itself. So number one, they have to be in agreement that this is the suitable occupational goal for you and have you in a plan for that. And number two, do you have enough entitlement time to complete that training under the VRNE program?
Awesome. Thank you. The questions keep pouring in, so I'm going to keep on going here. They're great questions, everybody, that's being provided here. So the next one is, do I have to use up chapter 33 before I can use chapter 31?
Answer is no, you don't have to, but you do have to. Well, I would recommend that you at least apply for your post 9/11 GI Bill before you apply to the VRNE program. And the reason behind that is because we're basing your BAH, the E5 dependent pay, off your chapter 33, your post 9/11 GI Bill. So one, you have to apply for your post 9/11 GI Bill first before you apply to the VRNE program, or at least it's recommended in order to be eligible for the BAH under the post 9/11 GI Bill. But you do not have to utilize the post 9/11 GI Bill first. So if you're like, hey, I just got out of the military about 3 months ago, I haven't touched my GI Bill, but I've applied for it, that's fine. You can apply for the VRNE program if you want to utilize that program first. And then the kind of cool thing is, if you use VRNE, your post 9/11 GI Bill is not deducted. The entitlement time is not deducted. But if you use your post 9/11 GI Bill first, and say you use 12 months of your post 9/11 GI Bill, 12 months will be deducted from the 48 months under voc rehab. So what we're trying to encourage some veterans to do is, hey, utilize VRNE first, not second, which has always typically been the case. Because if you want to go on to get a PhD, and we're not approving that PhD, but you finish your bachelor's degree underneath us, or maybe a master's or whatever it is, then if you have some entitlement time remaining on your post 9/11 GI Bill, you could go back and potentially utilize that to pursue additional education or training that we aren't going to approve.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, because another question just came before that, was if you use your post 9/11 GI Bill first, can you switch over to VRNE?
Yes, you could definitely do that. Like I mentioned, that the entitlement time may be deducted from VRNE. So however much time you used on your GI Bill, that could be subtracted from the 48 months, but you could definitely use your GI Bill first and then transfer over to the VRNE program. You definitely can do that. What's what a majority of veterans underneath the voc rehab program are currently doing.
Thank you. So we have another person here that says, I'm a veteran with a 70% disability rating. I will receive 2 associate's degrees next month. Should I apply for VRNE now or after graduation? This person plans to pursue a bachelor's degree from a university starting in the fall.
Yeah, I would recommend you apply now, especially if you're looking at pursuing, a bachelor's degree. You may or may not have already been accepted to that bachelor's program. You could wait until you're admitted into the bachelor's program. That's kind of your decision. Because if you're not admitted into that bachelor's program, there's really not much for us to go off of. If you're requesting to use us to complete your bachelor's degree, you obviously have to be admitted into that program. So you might want to wait until you've been admitted into that bachelor's program to go ahead and apply for the VRNE program. But remember, if you're requesting a bachelor's degree, we just have to make sure that it's required for the job that you're wanting to pursue or get into.
All right. So I guess another follow-up question prior to this one in regards to that post 9/11, the person who used the post 9/11 GI Bill first and wants to switch over to VRNE, is there a possibility of getting that time reinstated if they switch over to VRNE? Yeah.
Yes, so there's a possibility that we could do a retro induction, which means you could get some of your post 9/11 GI Bill back that you may have previously used. But that's only if you're found entitled to the VRNE program. That voc rehab counselor has to make a determination, one, if you're eligible for a retro of your GI Bill. And then the second thing is if you're eligible, how much entitlement time will you potentially get back? How many months will you get back? So that varies. And so that's something the voc rehab council will determine after they find you entitled, if you're eligible for the Chapter 33 retro to get some of that entitlement time back.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is, I was qualified by my counselor in September of last year. I've been responding to the EVA change of circumstance emails. Should I be concerned about the process stoppage? Can I apply for a VOC extension?
So if you're currently in the VRNE program, as long as you're communicating with your counselor and your case hasn't been closed out, you should be okay. Any changes regarding your case, that has to be approved by the voc rehab counselor. So I would make sure that your case with your counselor is still active, and that if there's any changes that are going on with your case, that you notify that counselor ASAP so that they're aware and it can make those adjustments if needed.
Thank you. And then looks like the last question coming through is, I'm looking to transfer to Cal Baptist this upcoming fall semester. How does transitioning my Chapter 31 benefits to another institution work?
So that's perfectly fine. The way that we typically do it is through employment, through training objectives. So if we put you into one training objective, say you're at the local community college there at Norco, and then your second training objective would be for a bachelor's degree at maybe, let's say UC Riverside. That then the way we have it is upon you completing objective one, which is the associate's degree, you would move on to objective two, which is the bachelor's portion. So upon you completing your associates and being admitted into the bachelor's program at UC Riverside, then you move on to the next, right? And then what we would do as the voc rehab counselor is we would send a PO authorization to that other school to verify that you're eligible to use the VRNE program there. But you just want to make sure that if you're looking at another school, that is in your voc rehab program rehab plan to say that you're eligible or that you're able to attend this other school upon you completing one education program or school. So you just would move on to the second one or the next one as long as it's in your rehab plan.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That kind of wraps up our questions for now. I know that there might be some more questions that might come through, but for sake of time, I know we already forwarded us through the next slide, but if there are any additional questions, the Q&A will remain open, and if there's time at the end, we will revisit more of the questions. But Ryan, thank you so much for fielding all of those and also just providing an awesome presentation. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Kirk for additional
information. Thank you, Cherie, for the questions, and Ryan for the answers. And like Cherie said, everyone, please, if you have more questions, please continue to put them in the Q&A. We will keep the Q&A open, and we'll try to get to those at the end following up. But now I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, the link coordinator for the Inland Empire, Merlene Steinbeck. She's in person at Norco, so she'll be providing a quick overview of her roles, responsibilities there in the Inland Empire. Can you hear me, Merlene?
Hi, I am the local interagency network coordinator for California Department of Veterans Affairs. I cover the Inland Empire. Next slide, please. My area encompasses this big red area on the map here, which is Inyo, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. As you could tell from the map, there's several different places. There are 8 of us in the state of California. That said, my area is very big geographically. However, as you can see, Orange County is really small, right, geographically, but there's just as many veterans in Orange County as there is in my entire district. A lot of my job includes traveling throughout this state. And if my coworker calls out sick, I'm going to a different part of California. So next slide, please. We provide outreach to service members, veterans, and their families. We make referrals and work directly with the established service providers. So that would be like, I work directly with VA Loma Linda, with the directors of San Diego and LA regional offices, the Corona Vet Center, the Victorville Vet Centers, like all of the vet centers throughout San Bernardino County, Riverside, and Yomonos. We also assist with local emergencies. So when we had the big snow impact in Crestline, I went out there in a 4x4 truck, that kind of thing. But when you see somebody saying with a Calvet logo or table or books or coming from Calvet, we're here to assist you. We also provide leadership and advocacy to local communities. Just last week, I was speaking with one of the congressmen over in the Palm Springs area. So Calvert, and we were talking about the various different things that could help the roundtable for the veterans and things like housing, transportation issues. But I advocate mainly for those who could fill like the gaps in services. I advocate for veterans, and I'm your buffer. So if you come to me with an issue, I can go to one of the leadership members and talk to them. Next slide. We work with EDD. Yesterday was at a job training, Ontario at the ACC. Well, it was actually at the Ontario Airport in Terminal 1, but the American Job Centers do training, hands-on things to try and get veterans into employment. I also work with the County Veteran Services offices, CalVet, VA medical centers, and clinics, and of course the vet centers, as I talked about before. Next slide. This is my contact information and my cell phone number. Feel free to just put that in. Where I'm on page 13 is all of the regional outreach contact information. You can reach out to your representative if I am not that person.
Merlene, thank you very much. I appreciate your participation in
Thank
person
you.
there at the school. So thanks for the great information. And she's going to hang around for the Q&A session at the end as well. So now I'm going to go over some brief information about the CalTAP program and some California specific benefits that you may be interested in pursuing. So let's see. So CalTAP was actually designed to inform and connect veterans of all eras to their federal and state benefits, and then also provide this continuum of care and support and assistance as those needs change over time. And how we like to do that is with our 5 pathways, the core curriculum, education, employment, entrepreneurship, and our service provider pathway. And we have provided webinars on each one of these pathways. So if you would like more information about these in detail, please go to our CalTAP YouTube channel and just look up one of these topics, and you can find many, many webinars on these topics for future information. This is a snapshot of our, what we like to call our veteran life cycle map, or the journey map. And this just kind of highlights some of the milestones from the time that you join the service, as well as all the way up to end of life care. And this is kind of how we want to stay connected with you in each one of these changes or milestones during this life cycle. We want to provide you assistance and information and resources at each one of these milestones. I understand it's a little difficult to see the small print on there, but you kind of get the gist. Is when you're joining, when you're separating, some of the benefits that you're looking for are going to be much different than they are, 5-10 years down the road from separation or when you retire. Maybe you want to look into purchase a home, use your education benefits, a little later down the road, you're interested in VA healthcare, filing a disability claim if you haven't already. And then, of course, those end of life care that you would need for our veteran cemeteries or the veteran homes. So this is just kind of a snapshot of some of those milestones and how we want to stay connected with you and provide that continuum of care. So this is CalVet's website. This is our homepage, and you can see some highlighted circles there. There is an informational circle on how to find your local county veteran office. There's many links there, as well as an 800 number on how to find the VSO. And then also at the bottom of the page, you're going to see a highlighted link for our veteran resource book. My colleague, Cherie Nuez, who was doing the Q&A portion, has kindly provided this in the chat for you, as well as a link and a hard copy for that, a PDF. So please check the chat. If it's not there, just let us know. We can actually put it in there for you to make sure you have access to that resource book. There's a lot of valuable information in that book going forward. This is what the book looks like, a hard copy of it. So please, you can also download that virtual copy from our website and put it on your phone, and then you have it with you everywhere you go. So let's talk about your California benefits. There are specific benefits to California through CalVet that a lot of veterans are not aware of. And we like to provide this webinar and these outreach events to provide you information on what those California benefits are. So one of the most popular is obviously our college tuition fee waiver. And this benefit is specific to the dependent for veterans only. Since the veteran receives their education benefits through the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, CalVet likes to provide this benefit to the veteran's dependents or their spouse. And there's 4 plans available. There's A, B, C, and D. The most common are Plan A and B. There is a tuition, there is a service connected disability rating, requirement for the veteran for the dependent to be eligible. So go on our website and look at the college fee waiver. You can see the eligibility. And these are processed through our county veteran service offices. They verify eligibility, and then they provide a tuition waiver at the state-funded school that the dependent is attending. We also have veteran designations for your driver's license. This is a great tool for you to have that veteran status put on your driver's license without carrying a multitude of documents around to verify your veteran status. To apply for this, you would verify your eligibility through your county veteran office. They will provide you with a letter that you would take to the DMV and have your license application processed. The same with the motor vehicle registration fee waiver. If you are service connected of 100% from the VA, you can have one of your motor vehicle registrations waived. This would require a letter from the county veteran service office for eligibility as well. There's also state parks distinguished veteran pass and reduced fees for hunting and fishing license in the state of California. If you have a service connected disability rating of 50% or greater, you would go to the California state parks or the wildlife websites and apply for those benefits directly on those websites for the state agencies. You'd create your account, upload your supporting documentation that verifies your eligibility, and then you would receive information and apply online for your license or your pass, and it would be the reduced fees. They're great benefits, and you can use them all over the state of California. The other benefits are the disabled veteran property tax exemption and the disabled veteran business tax exemption. These benefits are allowable and eligible for veterans of 100% service connected, permanent and total through the VA. For these, you would need to talk to your county tax assessor's office where you pay your taxes locally, and they can give you how much of an exemption they would provide for your property or your business license. And at CalVet, we have many different divisions. It's not just veteran services. We also have a home loans division, which is a great benefit for veterans to be able to apply for a home loan here in the state of California, where you can actually combine your VA loan with a CalVet loan to purchase a home. The unique thing is that a VA loan is not really a loan. It's basically a guarantee to purchase a home. but you're actually using a CalVet loan as California is the lender for your VA purposes. So you can actually combine both of those. Please contact our home loan specialist. Brad Pedersen is one of our agents that provide that information, and he can walk you through that. Or you can go to our website and look on the home loans page and apply directly on our webpage. We also have a women veterans division, and they provide advocacy and outreach specifically to the needs for women veterans. There's a statewide roster that you can sign up for, and you would also receive emails on upcoming events, workshops, as well as the annual Women Veterans Reception. Our minorities and underrepresented veterans also have their own division, and they also have a statewide roster you can sign up for. They do provide advocacy and outreach to these underrepresented veterans, and a multitude of benefits available, unique that are for minorities and underrepresented, like unnaturalized citizens for that are veterans. They help with that naturalization services and processing. We also have CalVet homes, 8 of them, throughout the state of California for aging veterans. They provide excellent care for independent living, as well as skilled nursing facilities, geriatric unit as well. So there's a multitude of care at these different veteran homes throughout the state of California. We also have state cemeteries throughout California. There's 3 of them. One of them is located in Yountville, next to the Yountville Veterans Home, Seaside, California, over by Monterey, and the third is up near Reading, in Igo. There is currently a 4th cemetery being under construction in the Lake Forest area near where El Toro is, and to be determined when that one is going to be open. So this is how we would really like to stay connected with you, as I mentioned from our life cycle slide. We'd like you to provide a non-DoD email to our CalTAP email box. You can register for My CalVet on CalVet's homepage. You can add us on social media. You can see the QR codes here, so please check those out. The YouTube QR code would take you there, and you can actually look at some of those recorded webinars. You can attend workshops and webinars like this, and then you can also fill out today's survey. The link will be coming up here with the QR code very shortly, and we're going to encourage you to take that survey. This is how you would apply for My CalVet on our homepage. Click the link to register, answer a few questions, provide some information on what information you'd like to hear about from us, and then stay connected that way. This is one of the workshops that you would, announcements that you would receive once you're connected. It gives you a list of the virtual workshops as well as some of the in-person workshops that we have. And it also gives you the ability to register for those on this announcement. It also has links to our partners as well as other service providers that we are partners with and that we provide information and resources for you, like the VA and the Veteran Crisis Line. Okay, so this is where our survey is. We would like you to take this survey. We encourage all of you to attend, to take the survey, because we value your feedback. This gives us the opportunity for improvement on areas that we need to work on, things that you're really interested in hearing about from us, benefits that you'd like to know more on, as well as workshops that we can tailor specifically to your needs. So we do value your feedback and want to provide input and improvements where this is needed. So during this time, I'm going to leave this up for just a moment and check in with my colleague Cherie and see if we have any other questions that we need to address while this slide is up before we get ready to sign off here. Cherie, how are we doing?
Hi, Kirk. Yep, we do have one more question for Ryan.
Sure.
I know that you're still on here. So it's going back to the question in regards to transitional period for BAH. So as far as the transitional period, what is the period of time after completion of the degree that a student will continue to receive BAH? 2 months? 18 months?
Yeah, so you only get 2 months of the employment allowance after you complete your education or training under the VRNE program. So it's only a 2-month cushion, right? And in order to be eligible for the employment allowance, you have to either be currently working in that career field or actively applying for jobs. And so typically that employment coordinator or counselor will request that you fill out a job log showing the jobs or positions that you've been applying for, and then to turn that in at the end of 30 days. And that's at the end of the 30 days is when you're eligible for either your first or second employment allowance, which is the BAH, if you're eligible for BAH. But again, it's only 2 months worth or 60 days. And then for us to close your case out, saying, you were rehabbed as a positive closure, you have to be successfully working that career field for at least 60 days. So that's another 60 days. And then we can close you out as a positive closure. So employment services, it can go up to 18 months, but only 2 months of it are you eligible to receive the employment allowance. The other thing that I want to quickly mention is that when you are applying for the VRNA program, you want to make sure you don't completely exhaust all 36 months of your post 9/11 GI Bill before you get into the VRNA program and found entitled. Because again, like I mentioned in the beginning, your BAH is coming from that. So if you completely exhaust all your GI Bill, meaning you're down to zero, and you come into the VRNA program, you're not going to be eligible for BH. You'll get something called subsistence allowance, which is calculated a lot differently. So it's not based upon the zip code and E5 of dependent pay. It's now based upon your rate of training and number of dependents. So keep that in mind. I know it's a long process, but you do not want to completely exhaust your post 9/11 GI Bill before getting into the VRNA program, so that you may continue to use or receive that BH while in the program.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Great information.
We had one more just come right in. Thank you to the person who just wrote it. I was right about to turn it over to Kirk. But one question is, I may have missed it, but my application wait time is listed as 11 months for San Diego. Is there any plan to expedite that process?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fluctuating. It says 11 months. Hopefully it won't take that long, like you said. What we've been having to do is refer some cases out to other regional offices. So there's 3 additional regional offices that we're referring cases to. One is Portland, the other is Albuquerque, and I think the third is the Phoenix regional office. So we're transferring some, not all, some of these cases out to those regional offices so that their voc rehab counselors can meet with the veterans that have applied. So hopefully that will speed up the process. That's the goal. And we're also trying to hire more voc rehab counselors so that we can get that number down. But it could take, we're not hoping that it'll take a year or more, but from what I know, it's usually between, maybe 8 months from when you apply to when you're actually scheduled for that initial evaluation appointment. So keep checking your messages on EVA as to when you're scheduled out for that initial evaluation appointment, so you don't miss it. Make sure you mark on the calendar, because if you miss it, guess what happens? Within 10 business days, they could potentially close your case out, and then you'd have to reapply all over again. So you don't want to be in that boat or situation. So I know it's aggravating. I know it's frustrating. But we're trying to get things to where it's not as long. But in the meantime, make sure that when you apply and you're notified of your initial evaluation appointment, you mark that on your calendar and that you do not miss that appointment.
Thank you, Ryan. One more question is with the GI Bill, the limit is 10K for a year. Is that the same for VRNE?
So I'm not sure what the 10K is for on the GI Bill, but with voc rehab, things are calculated differently. So for us, the cost of the school would be one consideration, right? If it's a private school, a high cost school, if it's over a certain amount, like if you want to attend USC or USD or Pepperdine, that are high cost schools, then that requires an additional approval from the VRNE officer. So there's certain constraints that we look at in terms of whether it's over the cost threshold, and then any type of reimbursements that you're asking to be reimbursed back for. that needs to be approved by your voc rehab counselor. You just can't go out and randomly pick up stuff. It's got to be required for your program.
Right, thank you. And lastly, with your mention of wait times and looking to expand programs, somebody asked, where can I apply to be a voc rehab counselor? That is, if you know of any postings.
Yeah.
USA Jobs, right?
Yeah, there you go. They're all on USA Jobs.
Mhm.
We are hiring. We actually changed the threshold of the job requirement to include additional master's degree programs. So it's no longer, hey, you just have to have a master's degree as a voc rehab counselor. Social worker, MSW, we will take those. And there's a few other ones within the education field. So if you want to go onto USA Jobs, type in voc rehab counselor, and then you can pull up those job postings that are open, and then also look at the requirements to see if you meet the requirements for the degree that they're requesting, and then apply. And hopefully one day you'll be a voc rehab counselor if that's your goal. You know, I mean, maybe Kirk, one day you'll be a voc rehab counselor.
Let's see, we had one more question that just came in as a quick follow-up. I begin school in the fall, but won't have my initial interview until winter. Should I begin using my GI Bill or just stick with the student loans to keep from depleting my GI Bill?
So it all comes down to how much entitlement time you have remaining on that GI Bill. So again, you do not want to completely exhaust it before getting into the voc rehab program. So I know it's a long wait, and some veterans, you're going to run the risk potentially of running out of your GI Bill before you can get into the voc rehab program. So you want to conserve whatever time you have remaining. You don't want to go over that. Now, if you have plenty of time on your GI Bill, just continue using your GI Bill. But if you're running out, meaning like, hey, I've got like 4 months remaining, and you know, I've got another semester or so before my scheduled appointment, then you might want to look at conserving that. Either take a leave of absence if you're able to, or look at, you know, financial aid. There's a lot of scholarships, things like that. But again, you're kind of banking on the fact that you just don't want to exhaust your GI Bill before getting into the voc rehab program. Otherwise, like I said, you run the risk of not getting BH. Now, if you're like, hey, I can't afford that, right? California is super expensive. There's no way in heck that, you know, I'm just going to not be able to use my GI Bill and attend school. So if you have to use it and you run out of your GI Bill, like I mentioned, then you would get something called subsistence allowance, which is a lot less than you would be receiving for your post 9/11 GI Bill pay, that BH pay under VRNE.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank
Ryan.
you so much, Ryan.
Yep.
Good, Kirk.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate this. I know we're just a little bit over time here, so we're going to continue on. This is everybody's contact information. So if you need emails, please take a snapshot of this. I hope you guys can reach out. I know you guys, everybody's going to have really in-depth, individualized questions. Please reach out to, you know, Ryan's been fortunate enough to provide his email here for as a contact. Reach out to him. If you can't get try one of us, please, you know, that's what we're here for. We really are passionate about caring and serving veterans in providing that connection with those resources that you really need. So again, I want to thank you guys all for joining us. I would like to speak briefly about some upcoming webinars. We have some coming up through the end of May. Discharge upgrades, navigating, coping with, since May, it's not 3/15. I apologize for that error. It's 5/15. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so there will be some life stressors, suicide prevention, and mental health webinars coming up, as you can see here. So yes, our webinar is being recorded. It will be available at a later date on our YouTube channel that was put into the link into the chat. So please check back in a few business days. It does take a little bit of time for our communications division to process that. So we do look forward to you guys coming back again for other future webinars. And with that, I'd like to say thank you all for your service and for joining us. And a huge, huge shout out to our partners at Norco College in their continued partnership with CalTAP and the CalVet program, CalProVet and the CalTAP program.
Thank you
We
so
love
much.
Norco. We love you guys out there. Eric, if you want to speak before we sign off, thank you and your staff again for opening up the VRC. and allowing, and as well as all the attendees in person. We appreciate you guys coming out and joining us in person there at the BRC. So hopefully you guys got some good information. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over and sign off. So thank you all. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Merlene, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
How many did we have in person?